Okay, so I'm Alex Plows. I'm one of the co-investigators on the overall project, and particularly on the Wales case study, working with Sarah and Tom, and she was our artistic liaison person, and Andy, who's our community partner. And okay, so I tend to spend most of my time emailing or Skyping the guys, because I'm actually up in Bangor, which is some distance away from the case study site. It's about, which is in sort of both Talabont areas. I'm up in Bangor, and that's down there by Aberystwyth. It's about 2 hours drive away. So I have been down a few times, and I'll spend more time down there, especially in the summer. But I do a lot of stuff on Skype and email. Just sort of really, I guess my role, I'd sort of see it primarily as being oversight and sort of facilitation, in the sense that just try to sort of help the various plans and schemes and ideas and frameworks sort of develop in a way that makes sure everyone's happy, and that we're sort of tied back into the wider project, and just kind of help with all of that, and stick my sort of social science two pennythorns in and ask that kind of but why question quite a lot. So yeah, and I do quite a lot of stuff on the website, which Tom has been very instrumental in setting up, and because I think it's really important. Again, that sort of, I suppose it's a Wales thing. We're very aware of space and distance and the need to be in communications. So, you know, we have that within our own case study, and it's certainly the sense of playing. Same with the other case studies, you know, we're not in isolation just doing our own thing. It's like, how do we kind of be informed by and inform what's going on in the other case studies, you know, the actual practice on the ground, what those places are like, you know, what's going on in those places, and what can, you know, because you know, obviously, like Lee Valley area of London is very, very different to rural Wales in some ways, but, you know, sort of, it's, you know, let's talk about this the other day, you know, I remember one of the cultural maps that has been done in Lee Valley had this kind of the risk thing, you know, sort of dangerous places to walk, and, you know, you wouldn't get that sort of same sense of risk in the same way in North Wales or Mid Wales. You know, you might have a different type of risk. It's a dangerous place to walk because it's a bog and you might fall in, and if you wander too far off the beaten path, which is slightly different to the risk of being mugged. I don't think we really have that sense of risk. You know, so I think, you know, I don't want to sort of oversimplify, but you see what I mean. You know, there are these you know, this sort of, as we sort of think about the project as a whole, some of those questions we need to answer, and how are we going to answer them. So, you know, I guess I'll kind of, you know, try and think that through, and, you know, write about it, and find things out that I think are interesting. I'm really interested in many, many things to do with water and values and you know, environmental sort of philosophy kind of, and citizenship and ecological citizenship and all the rest of it. But, I'm also very interested in spatial governance, and especially sort of this idea of sort of spatial governance from above, and you know, it was one of those, I guess, more sort of social science-y things that I'd really like to work with people across the project, possibly, and look at that kind of combo of how you might explore this in an arts-based way, of looking at how water governance is kind of happening in our four areas and how it's being responded to. So we've had various sort of flood development strategies in Wales, and, you know, it frames up the space and the questions in particular ways, and it kind of sort of forces people to respond to them in certain ways as well, you know, and I find that really interesting. You know, it's kind of shaping up, you know, the question before perhaps other people might have framed that question differently, you know, and so I'm kind of interested in that as a kind of comparable thing across the four areas. You can look at just the policy that's coming out and the discourse of that policy, but I mean, it'd be so interesting to sort of work with the, you know, how an arts-based approach to explore people's kind of, you know, tensions around that, or feeling excluded from it, or feeling that particular policy framework didn't address their issues properly in the first place. That kind of thing, I think there's a huge scope for looking at that and people's responses to it as just one sort of theme that's of many that kind of feed in to this project, which is, I think, again, part of the challenge. It's so vast, it's like, how do we get something manageable out of it that's got some coherence without then pushing our own agenda on things as well. So yeah, blather. Answers on a postcard, please. I'm currently writing a PowerPoint on cultural ecosystem services, and giving an introduction to that for a talk organised by Natural Resources Wales, and which is happening this week, on ecosystems and well-being. And I'm kind of giving a sort of a splicing, an introduction to hydrocitizenship and an introduction to ecosystem services as a kind of concept, and sort of looking at how hydrocitizenship might, through an arts-based participatory approach, is likely to be addressing a lot of these issues around, the values people hold around landscape and water, and the values they hold and the value they get from it, from being in nature, or and I'm sort of halfway through writing this PowerPoint, which I'm going to stick up on the communities, hopefully during the Shipley event, because I can't get to it, so hopefully that'll be my little interactive ping moment. I'll sort of stick it up online, and it might hopefully feed into some of the conversations I think are likely to be being had up in Shipley, which I'm gonna miss you all, and see you at the next one.